What's good, everybody? Before we dive into this absolute chaos unfolding in Cleveland, I need your help for just a second. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers and build this community into something special. If you're about to get the real unfiltered breakdown of what's happening in the NFL, smash that subscribe button right now. Your support means everything and helps us keep bringing you this content. Now let's get into it. We are back with another bombshell from the NFL, and I'm telling you right now, if you thought the quarterback drama in Cleveland was intense before, you haven't seen anything yet. We're no longer just talking about whispers and speculation. We're no longer just analyzing sideline footage and reading between the lines of press conferences. Now we're talking about something far more serious, far more damaging, and far more revealing about what's actually happening inside one of the most dysfunctional organizations in professional football. The Cleveland Browns front office has officially turned on their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, and it's happening in the most public, most dramatic way possible. This is the kind of situation that destroys coaching careers. This is the kind of situation that tears organizations apart from the inside out. And if you're not paying attention to what's happening in Cleveland right now, you need to be, because this is absolute chaos. Picture this for a moment. The Cleveland Browns are in the middle of a game. The team is struggling on both sides of the ball. The fans are desperate for answers, and tensions are absolutely boiling over. The offense isn't producing anything consistently. The quarterback situation is a complete mess. Everyone watching, from the die-hard season ticket holders to the casual fans at home, wants to see Shedeur Sanders get a chance to prove himself. And then, in a moment that will be talked about for years to come, something extraordinary happens. The fans start chanting, not just a few scattered voices, but a roaring chorus that echoes through the entire stadium. We want Sanders. We want Sanders. We want Sanders. It's loud. It's clear. It's unmistakable. You can hear it on the broadcast cutting through the commentary. You can see it on the faces of people in the stadium, standing, pointing, demanding change. This isn't a small contingent of cranky fans in one section. This is a significant portion of the fan base, making their voice heard in a way that cannot be ignored or dismissed by anyone in that building. But here's where it gets absolutely wild, where this goes from being just another frustrated fan moment to something that will define this franchise for years. While the fans are chanting, while their voices are shaking the stadium, Shedeur Sanders is literally on the sideline warming up. He's getting loose, stretching out his arm, preparing to potentially go into the game. He's ready, he's willing, he's able. Everything seems to be setting up for a moment where Kevin Stefanski makes a change, where the coach responds to the pressure building around him, where something shifts in the dynamic of this game and this season, but it doesn't happen. Stefanski stays with Desmond Ridder. He continues to trust the struggling veteran. He refuses to make the change that seemingly everyone in that building, and I mean everyone from the upper deck to the luxury boxes, wants to see happen. And in that moment, something crucial breaks inside the Cleveland Browns organization. This is the moment where we go from internal frustration and quiet disagreements to public rupture and organizational warfare. This is the moment where the front office realizes that Stefanski is not listening to what's happening around him, not responding to the obvious problems staring everyone in the face, not adjusting his approach despite mounting evidence that his current strategy isn't working and is actively hurting the team's chances of success. And instead of handling this privately, instead of having quiet conversations behind closed doors in the coach's office, instead of working through the proper channels and maintaining the professional veneer that NFL organizations typically pride themselves on, the Browns organization does something absolutely unprecedented. They go public. They criticize their own head coach in the media publicly, where everyone can see it and hear it and analyze it and dissect every single word. Think about what that means for a second. Really let it sink in. The front office of an NFL organization publicly stepping out and essentially saying our head coach is making the wrong decisions is not something that happens often. It's a massive breach of protocol. It's a violation of the normal chain of command and the normal way organizations operate in this league. But that's exactly what happened in Cleveland, and it signals something far deeper than just disagreement about quarterback decisions or game management. It signals that the relationship between the front office and the head coach is broken beyond repair. It signals that there's a fundamental lack of trust permeating every level of this organization. It signals that the people running this franchise have lost faith in Stefanski's ability to lead this team and make the right decisions in critical moments. Now let's talk about who Shedeur Sanders is and why this is such a massive deal, why this isn't just another backup quarterback situation that will blow over in a week. Sanders was a 5th-round pick out of the University of Colorado. He comes from an incredible pedigree that you can't ignore. His father is the legendary Deion Sanders, one of the greatest athletes to ever play professional football, a man who defined a generation of NFL and MLB excellence. But Shedeur isn't just trading on his name or coasting on his father's reputation. He's got legitimate talent that stands on its own. He's got an arm that can make every throw required in a modern NFL offense. He's got mobility that allows him to extend plays and create opportunities when the pocket breaks down. He's got the kind of physical tools that make NFL scouts and analysts sit up and take notice when they watch his film. More importantly, and this is what really matters in the context of what's happening in Cleveland right now, he's got something that Desmond Ridder has been struggling to demonstrate consistently throughout his time with this organization. He's got the kind of dynamic playmaking ability that can change games in an instant, that can turn a broken play into a touchdown, that can energize an entire team and fan base with one spectacular moment. The thing about Shedeur Sanders, the reason this situation has become so explosive is that he represents possibility in a way that few backup quarterbacks do. He represents youth and a fresh start. He represents the idea that maybe, just maybe, the Browns have found an answer to their quarterback problems without having to make a massive trade that costs them draft picks or spend enormous resources in free agency that hamstrings their salary cap for years. He's already on the roster, already wearing the uniform, already collecting a paycheck. He's already learning the system, already building relationships with his teammates, already part of the organization's culture. All he needs, all the fans are begging for, all the front office apparently wants, is an opportunity to show what he can do on Sundays when the games actually matter. And the fans of Cleveland, a fan base that has suffered through decades of quarterback failures and false hopes, are convinced that if given that opportunity, if handed the keys to this offense, he'll take this team to the next level and finally give them something to believe in. But here's the problem that's tearing this organization apart. Kevin Stefanski has refused to give him that opportunity, and not just refused in a quiet internal way that might go unnoticed by the media and fans. Stefanski has been publicly adamant about his commitment to Desmond Ridder. He's been talking about process and development. He's been talking about patience and the long view. He's been talking about young players needing time to develop and learn the system before they're thrown into the fire. And while all of that is technically true, while all of that might be theoretically correct from a coaching manual perspective, the reality on the field is telling a completely different story. The reality is that Ridder hasn't produced at anywhere near the level this offense needs. The reality is that the Browns are sitting at 2 wins and 5 losses, watching their playoff hopes slip away with each passing week. The reality is that fans are watching their team lose week after week, watching their defense give everything they have only to be let down by an offense that can't sustain drives or score points. And they're watching a potential solution sitting on the sideline, not playing, not contributing, just watching with a headset on. The public statement from the Browns organization was carefully calibrated by lawyers and PR professionals, but it was absolutely devastating to Stefanski's position within this organization. By speaking out, by essentially backing the fans' desire to see Sanders play, by acknowledging that there are legitimate questions about the quarterback situation, the front office was sending a crystal clear message that everyone in the NFL understood immediately. We disagree with your decision making, and we're tired of watching this team lose with you at the helm, making choices we don't support. This is organizational warfare at its finest, the kind of internal conflict that usually stays hidden until someone gets fired. This is a power play, a calculated move to undermine the head coach's authority. This is the front office asserting its authority over the coaching staff and making it clear that they're not going to be passive observers while Stefanski runs this team into the ground with stubborn loyalty to a quarterback who isn't getting the job done. What makes this situation even more explosive, even more combustible than it already appears on the surface, is the context surrounding how Sanders has been handled throughout the entire season. This didn't just start happening this week in response to one bad game. The discontent with how Sanders is being developed and utilized, or more accurately not utilized, has been building for weeks among fans, media, and apparently within the front office itself. During the preseason, there was an incident that really rubbed people the wrong way and started raising serious questions about Stefanski's intentions. Shedeur Sanders was pulled from a game before a crucial 2-minute drill situation, one of the most important scenarios for evaluating a young quarterback's decision decision-making and poise under pressure. And who replaced him in that critical moment? Tyler Huntley, a veteran backup who had bounced around the league. Sanders didn't get the chance to show what he could do in a situation that actually matters. He didn't get the opportunity to prove himself in a moment that would have given coaches and fans real information about his readiness. Instead, he was benched in favor of a journeyman backup who was never going to be part of the long-term future of this franchise, who was clearly just a safety net. That move raised immediate questions and criticisms from analysts and fans alike. People started saying that Stefanski was intentionally setting Sanders up to fail, that he was protecting Rader by not letting Sanders get meaningful playing time that might show he's the better option, that he was more interested in being loyal to his current starter than in doing what was best for the organization's future. Whether that criticism was fair or not, whether Stefanski had legitimate coaching reasons for his decision, that's what people believed. That's what the narrative became across social media and sports talk radio. And narratives in sports have a way of taking on a life of their own. Once they get momentum, once people believe something, once people start telling that story and repeating it and building on it, it becomes very difficult to change that perception no matter what the actual truth might be. So you've got this preseason incident that planted seeds of doubt, and then you've got weeks of Ridder struggling to move the ball consistently, weeks of the offense looking stagnant and predictable, weeks of fans and media asking the same question over and over. Why isn't Shedeur Sanders playing? What are we waiting for? And then you've got the recent game where fans are literally chanting for Sanders so loud it's drowning out everything else, where Sanders is warming up on the sideline looking ready to go, where everything seems to be pointing toward a quarterback change that would give this team and this fan base a spark of hope. But Stefanski refuses. He sticks with Ridder through another disappointing performance. He doubles down on his commitment to his struggling veteran who has done nothing to earn that kind of unwavering loyalty. And that's when the front office decides they've had enough, when they decide that staying silent is no longer an option. Kevin Stefanski's public response to all of this mounting pressure has been interesting to watch. He's tried to defend his decision by talking about the need for offensive explosiveness and the importance of improving as a team collectively rather than placing blame on one position. He said something along the lines of, "We'll continue to try to get him to make those improvements that young players make and also play better around him on all three phases." This is classic coach speak, the kind of carefully worded response that coaches give when they're trying to deflect criticism without actually addressing the core issue. This is Stefanski essentially saying the problem isn't just Desmond Ridder, the problem is all of us. We all need to do better as an organization. And while that's probably true to some degree, football is absolutely a team sport, and you do need all phases working together to win games. It also feels like Stefanski is deflecting from the central issue that everyone else can see clearly. The central issue is that Ridder isn't performing at the level that a starting NFL quarterback needs to perform in order to win games in this league, and there's a backup on the sideline who might be able to do better, who represents a different skill set and a different approach that might unlock this offense. One interesting development in all this chaos is that franchise legend Joe Thomas actually came to Stefanski's defense publicly. Joe Thomas is a Hall of Fame offensive lineman who spent his entire career with the Browns through some of their worst years, and when he speaks about this organization, people listen because he's earned that respect. Joe Thomas said something along the lines of, "You want to wait at least until they know enough of the offense. Are they getting rid of the football when they're supposed to? Are they making good decisions with the ball?" Joe Thomas is essentially arguing that it's important to give young quarterbacks time to learn the system properly, that you can't just yank them in and out after a few bad games or practices, that developing a quarterback is a process that requires patience and consistency. And Joe Thomas is not wrong about that fundamental principle. In theory, everything he's saying makes perfect sense and aligns with how successful organizations typically develop young talent. Young quarterbacks absolutely do need time to develop and grow. They do need to learn the intricacies of an NFL system. They do need to make mistakes in practice and learn from them in order to grow into competent starters. But there's a significant difference between giving a young quarterback time to develop in a situation where he's showing progress and continuing to play a veteran quarterback when it's abundantly clear he's not the answer and you have a potentially better option sitting on the sideline. There's a fine line between patience and stubbornness, between giving someone a fair opportunity and wasting valuable time on someone who isn't going to work out. And many people, from fans to media to apparently the front office itself, believe that Kevin Stefanski has crossed that line line decisively. He's no longer being patient and thoughtful. He's being stubborn and inflexible. He's being loyal to a guy who isn't producing results at the expense of a team that's dying for answers and desperately needs something to change before the season completely slips away. The media has certainly picked up on this storyline and run with it. Skip Bayless, the bombastic talking head who built his career on controversial takes, issued a blistering critique of Stefanski on his show, essentially saying that the coach is out of time and is badly mishandling Sanders' development in a way that could hurt both the player and the organization. This isn't some random internet personality with a podcast saying this. This is a major media voice with a massive platform and millions of viewers saying that Stefanski is making the wrong decision and needs to be held accountable. And where there's smoke, there's usually fire in these situations. Where one major media personality is criticizing you publicly, there are usually others thinking the same thing and discussing it in production meetings. The tide is turning against Stefanski in the court of public opinion, and everyone inside that organization can feel the pressure building. Cleveland.com reporter Mary Kay Cabot, who covers the Browns closely and has developed sources inside the organization over years of reporting, added important context to this entire situation. She reported that Sanders has been working diligently on every aspect of his game during practice, that he's taking the professional approach despite his lack of playing time, and that the Browns are eager to see what he can do this season when the time comes. Notice the specific phrasing there. Eager to see what he can do. That doesn't sound like an organization that's happy with how things are currently being handled by the coaching staff. That doesn't sound like an organization that's confident in Kevin Stefanski's decision-making process or his evaluation of the quarterback position. That sounds like an organization that's waiting impatiently for an opportunity to make a change, that's counting down the days until they can finally unleash Shedeur Sanders on the league and see if he's the answer they've been searching for. The real question that everyone is asking, the question that will determine how this entire situation plays out, is how deep does this dissatisfaction go within the organization's power structure? Is this just the media relations department putting out carefully worded statements to appease angry fans? Is this just low-level front office people expressing their personal frustration in conversations with reporters? Or is this coming from the very top of the organizational chart? Is the general manager on board with this public criticism of the head coach? Is the owner implicitly supporting this narrative by allowing it to continue without pushback? That's the crucial question that will determine Stefanski's future. Because if this is just coming from people lower in the organization without real power, it might blow over once the team wins a couple games. But if this is coming from the very top, if the owner and general manager are signaling through back channels that they want to change at quarterback and are frustrated with Stefanski's handling of the situation, then Kevin Stefanski's days in Cleveland might be numbered regardless of what happens on the field. Let's look at the larger context of how we got to this critical point in the season. The Browns made the decision to trade away veteran quarterback Joe Flacco during the offseason, which opened the door for either Ridder or Sanders to claim the starting position through competition. Ridder got the nod coming out of training camp, but his early performance was sluggish and inconsistent. He wasn't making the kinds of plays that inspire confidence from coaches or fans. He wasn't leading the team to victories or showing the kind of growth you want to see. He was making mental mistakes and showing the kind of inconsistency that raises legitimate questions about whether he's really an NFL starter capable of leading a team to the playoffs. Meanwhile, on the sideline during every game, there's Shedeur Sanders, this young, athletic, dynamic player with incredible upside and all the physical tools you want, just waiting for his chance to prove himself on the biggest stage. From a pure football perspective, from a performance standpoint divorced from politics and loyalty, it makes sense to at least consider making a change at this point in the season. From a business perspective, from a marketing standpoint that organizations have to consider, bringing in a young talented quarterback with incredible upside and a legendary name behind him might energize the fan base and create some positive momentum for an organization that desperately needs good news. But from Stefanski's perspective, from a coach who's been hired specifically to develop young talent and build a sustainable winning culture, the resistance to making a change makes sense too in its own way. Stefanski doesn't want to be the guy who gives up on a young quarterback after a handful of bad games. He doesn't want to create a culture where guys are yanked out and discarded as soon as they struggle. He wants to give Ridder time to learn and grow and work through his mistakes. But here's the fundamental problem with that approach. In professional sports, you don't have the luxury of unlimited time to let things develop naturally. You don't have the luxury of just waiting and hoping things magically improve without intervention. You've got fans who pay significant money to watch games and buy merchandise. You've got a general manager and owner who are tired of losing and missing the playoffs year after year. You've got a business that depends on winning, that depends on creating a product that's entertaining and compelling enough to keep people engaged. And right now, in this moment, the current product isn't working at all. The current approach isn't producing wins or excitement. The current strategy is failing measurably, and something fundamental has to give before this entire season is lost. The decision by the Browns front office to publicly criticize Stefanski represents a major escalation in an internal conflict that's been brewing quietly for weeks behind closed doors. It's a shot across the bow in organizational terms. It's a warning that can't be misinterpreted. It's essentially the front office saying clearly, we're not going to be quiet anymore about our concerns. We're not going to sit back passively and watch you make decisions we fundamentally disagree with. We're going to speak out publicly, and we're going to make our position crystal clear to everyone. And that kind of public disagreement between coaching staff and management is absolutely devastating to a coach's authority and credibility within the building. When your front office is publicly criticizing you, when players are reading reports about internal conflicts in the organization, when the media is constantly questioning your decision-making in press conferences, you've lost control of the narrative that's so important in professional sports. You've lost the ability to lead with confidence and unquestioned authority. Your locker room starts to wonder if you're on your way out the door. Your players start to wonder if they should be completely buying into what you're saying in your system, or if they should be hedging their bets and preparing for new leadership. It creates instability throughout the entire organization. It creates uncertainty about the future. And in professional sports at this level, uncertainty and internal conflict are absolutely deadly to winning football games. The fans chanting "We want Sanders" was just the initial spark that lit the fuse. But the real explosion, the real fire that's consuming this organization, came when the Browns front office essentially agreed with those fans publicly instead of supporting their coach. The fans didn't force this issue into the open through their chants alone. The front office made the calculated decision to take this public. And that's what makes this situation so historically consequential for this franchise. This isn't about fan pressure anymore or message boards complaining. This is about organizational pressure from the people who actually make decisions. This is about the people running the team expressing serious doubt in their head coach's judgment. And that's a much bigger deal than any amount of fan criticism because it comes with actual power to make changes. What happens next in Cleveland is absolutely critical for everyone involved. Either Kevin Stefanski is going to make a change at quarterback and try to appease the front office and the fan base that's demanding it, or he's going to continue to stand by Desmond Ridder and risk losing his job over this principle. There's no middle ground here that satisfies everyone. There's no compromise position that makes both sides happy. This has become a binary choice with massive implications, and whatever Stefanski chooses in the coming days is going to have massive implications for the future direction of this franchise for years to come. If Stefanski benches Ridder and finally plays Sanders, then he's basically admitting that he was wrong all along in his evaluation, that he mishandled the situation from the beginning, that he made a mistake by not giving Sanders more opportunities earlier in the season. That's incredibly difficult for any coach to do, especially when they've been so publicly committed to their starter and defended that decision repeatedly. But it might be exactly what he has to do to save his job, to keep the front office happy and supportive, and to give this team the best chance to turn things around before the season is completely lost. If Stefanski continues to start Ridder despite all this pressure, then he's doubling down on his convictions in the most dramatic way possible. He's saying that he believes in this quarterback regardless of what anyone else thinks, that he believes in his process and his evaluation, that he's not going to be swayed by external pressure or front office manipulation or fan demands. That takes genuine guts and courage in this environment, but it also might cost him his job if the team continues to lose games and the front office decides they've had enough of his stubbornness.